Hey guys, this is Chidanand from K8s Infotech NG, and I welcome you all to this short tutorial on Kubernetes configuration for Ingress Controller. In this case, it is the Traefik Ingress Controller. A little bit of a brief introduction about the Ingress Controllers, but my understanding is that if anybody wants to try out this tutorial or the demo that I've set up in this tutorial by looking at my video, they should have some experience or some prior expertise in running Minikube clusters. All right, so a little bit about what is an ingress controller. In the Kubernetes world, when there is a huge set of nodes which are running as a cluster, there are multiple ways of exposing the services that are running in the cluster. There is a node port, there's a cluster IP, there is a load balancer IP that can be set out, but each one of them has their own pros and cons. But what is getting more popular is a setup called as Ingress Controller, which is nothing but a set of or a bunch of rules which can be easily modified and in a very dynamic way, which allows you to configure the exposure of the services that are running within your cluster to the outside world. This is the essence of Kubernetes ingress controllers. There are also other stuff that comes along with these ingress controllers in terms of the load balancing features that it provides, SSL terminations, different varieties of routing, weightage based, name based, verb based, all that sort of things. And out there, you have a lot of ingress controllers which are available to you. Nginx is the most popular and very easy to use kind of a controller. Probably I'll run one of those demos later on, which tells you how easy is it to configure the Nginx. Istio, Traefik, cloud specific, HA proxy, Embassy. There's a bunch of such ingress controllers that is available in the market. But one thing that I've been trying around is called Traefik, which is a little bit more than just ingress controllers. Holistically, this is what is a very good depiction of what does a Traefik ingress controller does. So this is the outside world where you have a lot of DNS, you have a lot of API based services that has to be exposed to the outside world. You have this guy Traefik which sits on the edge of your Kubernetes cluster, and small configurations can be done here which will ensure that the pods or the services that is running within your huge cluster gets exposed to the outside one in whatever fashion that you would want it to. And what more, the configurations is very simple. It is dynamic, and in a short time I'm going to show you how exactly to set it up. All right, a little bit about the this Traefik ingress controller. It's not just an ingress controller as they call it. It's a cloud native edge router. It's a reverse proxy, which can be used for both HTTP and TCP based applications. Very easy, dynamic configuration. It's very fast, production grade, and it also provides a little bit of a metrics and a dashboard where you can see what are all these services that is set up for your ingress controllers. And also it supports multiple orchestration tools, not just Docker and Kubernetes, but a bunch of other stuff. It's getting very popular in recent times. It also supports WebSocket, HTTP2, Google RPC, a lot of other things, which are coming up. Okay, what do I plan to do as a part of this demo is what I've depicted right here. So I'm going to set up a Kubernetes cluster. I'm going to run a single node cluster on my Windows box. I will use Minikube to bring up a Kubernetes cluster. After that, I'm going to configure 3 different services. If you see, the names are a little different. One is the hello.minikube, welcome.minikube, and goodbye.minikube. These 3 configurations would be done so as to hit the right kind of services that I'm going to expose through my Kubernetes cluster. I am going to come up with 3 services on my Kubernetes cluster. Each one of them will in turn refer to a pod which is servicing this particular service. And with the small configurations, I'll show you how easy is it to expose these services to the outside world using Traefik Ingress. All right, let me then get started. Let me begin my demo by starting my single node Kubernetes cluster. So I'm using Minikube, and my virtual driver or the VM driver is my virtual box, and I'm using Kubernetes version 1.14.0. There's no specific reason for this, but I was working on a customer who's on this version. That's why I'm just more comfortable using this version. So I've just started the cluster, and looks like the cluster came up. Let me just check that. kubectl cluster info. Okay, Kubernetes is running. kubectl version. Alright, so the kubectl client that I have is 1.14, and the server is 1.14 as well. So this is where I have my Kubernetes cluster up and running. So let me start working on a bunch of configuration that is required for running my setup for Traefik Ingress Controller. All the code that I'm going to be showing here is present out here. I'll probably leave the GitHub URL link in the documentation for this YouTube video, so that you guys can refer to this. So I have all these YML files which pretty much make up the configuration that I'll be using for this demo. So first things first, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first create something called as a service account, because Kubernetes as of version v.14 supports a beautiful role-based access control. So I'm going to set up a service account, and the service account name is Traefik Ingress. And for all the configurations for the Traefik configuration that I'm going to do, I will use this namespace called kubesystem. I don't want to put this in the default use space. So good practice is to put this out in one of the namespaces which is reserved for the Kubernetes system. So kubesystem is a better option. There's no, again, binding rule that you got to put this out in this namespace. If you want, you can create your own namespace. But the norm is that put it in kubesystem. So I'm going to create first a service account, and then I'm going to create something called as a cluster role. So cluster role is nothing but it tells what kind of resources, what are the endpoints, what kind of permissions that would be available for this cluster role. And later I'm going to bind this cluster role with the service account that I've created. So let me run all these three things first. First one is the Traefik service account.yml. So kubectl create -f Traefik service account.yml. So I was managed to create the service account. Next, what I need is the cluster role cr. So Traefik cr.yml. I create the cluster role, then I run the cluster role binding. Now, these three are essential for me to create a cluster role for Traefik, so that it can control the pods and the services, so that the configuration would go through. All right. Next, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get the Traefik Ingress Controller up and running. There are multiple ways of configuring your Traefik Ingress Controller. Traefik configuration. The documentation is pretty good, but I have had issues in trying to figure out how particular versions and stuff like that. That's why I'm putting out this video. So there are multiple ways of configuring your Traefik Ingress configuration, specifically for the Kubernetes. Either you can set it up as a daemon set, you can put that out as a Helm chart in case you have a Helm chart. But what I plan to do here is I'm going to set it up as a deployment. The reason being that deployments, I can scale up my deployments if need be. If there's an update on the Traefik version that I'm using, I can do it very quickly by doing a rolling update or so that it's pretty easy for me to do it using deployment. So I'm going to create a deployment, and again, I'm going to put this in the kube system namespace. And the most important part is I'm using the image. So this is the Traefik version 1.7 that I'm using. And I've got a bunch of other configuration that I set out. Yes, I've got two ports that I'm exposing, or two ports that I'll be making use of. One of them is port 80, which is for the app services. See, all the backend applications with the services will all be routed to this particular port. And the other one is called the dashboard. This is where this port is what I'll be using for showing up the dashboard, which gives me a graphical interpretation or graphical description of the front end and the back end that is configured for my Traefik configuration. So let me go ahead and run this Traefik deployment. All right, so kubectl create Traefik deployment. Yes. All right, so that creates my deployment. Kubectl get deploy namespace is kube system. Okay, so the Traefik Ingress is not yet ready. It is still getting up and running. So let me just check that. It'll take a while for this to get up and going. Right. All right, looks like it's up and running. So let me check kubectl get pods in the namespace kube-system. All right, if you see this Traefik Ingress, this is the pod that is as a part of the deployment, which will be running my ingress rules. So let me just copy this and describe that stuff so that I can see what is there in it. So kubectl describe pod, name of the pod, and the namespace is kube system. All right, so this seems to be up and running perfectly fine. It is running. Traefik 1.7 is the image ID. Two ports that are exposed are used by this ingress controller. All right, and yeah, successfully assigned. So everything looks pretty good. So I now have my Traefik controller which are running, but I would need a way of exposing these to the outside world. So what I'll do is I will run something called as a service. I'm going to create something called as a service. I'm going to call this as some Traefik Ingress service. The name is not really relevant. I'm going to create it in the kube system. And what I want to do is I want to expose these two ports, 80 and 8080. That remember these are the ports that I configured my Traefik Ingress controller to take control of. So I will expose these two ports as a node port IP. So what does this mean is since I'm running a Minikube cluster, the IP addresses that I typically get would be very different, and many times these are not accessible within my individual node. So if I do a node port, so what happens is I'm pretty much guaranteed that whatever node port that I get, this will be accessible to the outside world with the same node. I mean rather same node and the port. So let me run this Traefik SVC. So kubectl create -f Traefik Traefik-SVC. Yes, that's the one I want to do. All right, so this would create a bunch of services. So kubectl get SVC in the namespace kube-system. All right, if you see now, I have this Traefik Ingress service, which has got this particular cluster IP, and it is exposing two of these ports. So let me describe that a little bit in detail and see what does this mean. Kubectl describe SVC, the name of the services. That's one. The namespace is cube-system. Okay, fantastic. So I have this Traefik Ingress service. It's got these two node ports. One node port is for my app services, and this is the IP address of that. It doesn't really matter what is the IP address because these would be running on this particular port. And any address in the cluster, if I hit this particular port, I should be able to, or I should be directed to my port 80. So there are two ports to look at. One is the app services port of which is 30757. The other one is port 8080, which is called the dashboard, or which I would need for my dashboard. And this is the port that it is running on. So let me take a print screen of that so that I would need this later on. So let me just open up my Paint and paste it around here so that I know what ports are what. Okay, so the port to look at would be these two ports. One is this one, and the other one is this one. All right, so I'll have all my dashboards and everything running on these, and all my services will be running on this port. However, let me just quickly see what is kubectl get svc -namespace cube system. Okay, so this is the IP address, this is the port. So let me just see Minikube IP. Okay, if I try to do a curl of http:// followed by, maybe I'll try 30757. Okay, there's nothing out there because we don't have any services exposed. Let me see 30095. All right, so if you see here, there's a dashboard out here that is at the port 30095. So if I try this in my browser, all right, at least I see an empty dashboard, but okay, so far so good. So I'm able to visualize the dashboard that is there. I can hit the dashboard by specifying the IP address, but this is not what I would want to do. What I want to do is, configure this so that any URL that I have in my mind where I have a DNS configuration for that URL set in, I would want that to be configured in my Ingress, so that whenever I hit that particular URL, I can go and hit this dashboard in the background. So what I'll do is, let me create another service. I'm going to just give a name for this called Traefik Web UI, and I'm going to expose, of course this is going to run in the namespace cube system, and this will expose the port 8080, which is for the dashboard UI, onto the port 80. So this will create nothing but a simple service called Traefik Web UI, and then I will have an Ingress controller or an Ingress configuration which tells me that anybody who's going to hit this particular URL, traefik-ui.minikube, anybody who's going to hit this URL will reach out to without anything in the path. That is, if they hit this, just this URL, so in the background this is going to hit this Traefik Web UI, which in turn maps to this particular service. So let me just go ahead and run that. Traefik Web UI. Okay, kubectl create -f Traefik Web. Okay, so I created this service. Now let me just create this ingress as well. Traefik Ingress. kubectl create Traefik ingress.yml. All right, even the ingress is created now. So what I want to do is now somehow ensure that I make some DNS changes so that this particular IP address or this particular domain name resolves to the IP address of my Minikube. So if I do my Minikube IP, This is the IP address. So what I'll do is, since I'm running on my Windows box, so let me go ahead and modify my etc host file, so that whenever somebody hits this particular address, they will in turn get redirected to this particular IP address. So let me go to my etc host file that is typically present in C:, Windows, what is that, system 32. Take some time for this to load. The name should be drivers, I think. Drivers, yes. Alright, there is this etc and there is this host file. So the only thing is I need to open this with the admin rights. Hopefully I have that. Okay, what I want to do is, this is the IP address of my Minikube, and what do I want that to get routed to is this particular address. So I'm going to copy this here, paste this here. Okay, so Traefik-UI Minikube. So instead of specifying this particular IP address now, I have put in a rule so that anybody who's going to hit in this particular URL would get redirected into my Ingress controller, and it should show up my dashboard. Okay, so let me just try that. What was the IP port? Was 30095. 30095. All right, there you see now I have a better way of getting into my dashboard by specifying a URL of my choice. For now, since it's a single machine, I can go ahead and modify anything, but assuming that if I had a particular fully qualified domain name, I could route to that by making the appropriate changes here. So I have a front end, I have a back end. Traefik-UI.minikube is the front end, and in the back end it's going to hit some service. This is nothing but the dashboard service which is running on my Traefik Ingress. There's also a way to check the health as to what is the condition of my services that is up and running. Whatever minimalistic UI that is present here, but this is pretty much sufficient to give me a good description about what is happening within my within the services within my cluster. That was all that was required in order to set up my Traefik Ingress Controller with my cluster. Okay, I hope that was pretty simple. Now on top of this, I've still not achieved my goal, which was to create 3 services called hello, goodbye, and welcome. So let me just go ahead and create that now. Once I have this whole setup up and running, creating these services, configure them dynamically, and ensuring that it gets picked up is all automatic. Let me quickly show you how to do that. So yes, I have a first thing, hello.yml. I have created a pod here. Simple name for my pod. It's called hello app. There's a label app and hello, and what am I running within this pod? I'm powering it with one of an this is the echo server, a very small Go language based echo server, which will just print out whatever is passed in the argument. So this is a simple hello pod, which you can visualize. Like if somebody hits this pod, he will see a text message that says hello. To expose that as a service, I've defined a service. It's called hello service. This is the tie-up between your pod and the service. And this 5678 is the port, default port on which this particular image runs. Now what I want to do is I want that to be exposed on port 80, because if you remember, port 80 is where we want all our app services to be tied up and running. Alright, so if I run this, I would have one pod and one service that will be created. So let me just quickly run that. kubectl create -f hello.yml. So kubectl, this was not created in the kube system namespace. So I should be able to see the pod running right here in the default namespace. Kubectl get PO. Okay, still continue creating. Kubectl get SVC, the service. Okay, there's a hello service that is created. If you see, it's a cluster IP, but I'm not really worried about any of this because I have my configuration set out in my ingress. So which will, point out this particular service, will expose this particular service with a different DNS or an URL that I'm going to set out. So let me just wait for the pod to be up and running. Okay, the pod is up and running. I have the service also up and running. Now comes the configuration part. It's a very simple configuration. All I'm going to do is create an ingress. The name could be anything for that matter. This is the annotation for this. This ingress class is called Traefik. Hello.minikube. This is the URL that I'm going to configure so that whenever it hits this hello.minikube to the default location, which is the /, it will get redirected to this hello service. And hello service is what I have running here. Okay, so let me run this hello ingress.yml. So kubectl create -f hello ingress . All right, now this itself is not sufficient. I got to do one more small configuration, which is I want this to be modified out here so that anybody hits this and they'll in turn get into my Minikube IP, but this is sufficient enough for me to route it back to my backend. Now let me see. Okay, voila. If you see this, as soon as I made those configuration changes, the URL or the dashboard got updated. In the front end is hello.minikube. In the back end, it points to the hello app service that is running. So automatically it was able to pick up my configuration and say that this is the front end, this is the back end. So if I hit this hello.minikube, of course I'll have to specify the IP address, sorry, the port, which is 30757. Okay, so I hit my service. Pretty simple one, but this is sufficient enough for you to realize that what has happened is when I'm hitting this particular URL, the ingress controller is taking care of routing that to the backend service. That is one service which was hello, which was pretty simple to configure. Let me go ahead and quickly configure the other two services. So I have another service called welcome. Again, this is a pod, welcome app, the same particular image that I'm using, only the time the text is different. Also, these ports are all referring to the same thing. So I have another welcome service. I also have another called goodbye. Both the pod and the service are in the same YAML. It's just the text is different. It's just to simulate different services. So let me just quickly create that. Welcome.yml. This will create an app, or rather a pod and a service. And also let me create a goodbye. Okay, another pod and app is created. Let me just check if the pods are up and running. kubectl get PO. Okay, goodbye is still getting created. Okay, in the meanwhile, let me just show you what is the enhanced ingress YAML file looks like. If you remember earlier, I had just hello.minikube. Now I've just updated this so that it can point to other things. All these configurations in one simple file. So I have a welcome.minikube, the URL being the default one, welcome.minikube // it will point to the welcome service, goodbye.minikube, and go back to the goodbye service in the background. So if the pods are up and running, all right, the pods are up and running. Now let me quickly run this apply -f. The reason being that I already created the simple hello ingress, so I just want to use apply this time around. so that I get that service gets modified. Greeting.ingress.yml. Okay, looks like all the configurations done. So let me look at this. Okay, beautiful. I see my goodbye from front end and back end. Hello Minikube, front end, back end. This is the default for the dashboard stuff, and then welcome Minikube, welcome backend. So now what I want to do is I just want to update my hosts file so that all this point to the same IP address. Okay, so instead of this hello.minikube, if I type in welcome, I should hit the welcome service. There you go. And if I see the goodbye, right, there you go. To quickly summarize what I did, I brought up a Minikube Kubernetes cluster. I was able to run 3 pods. Pods have some services. Each pod is powered by a simple echo image which prints out text, but this assuming this represent a bigger service in your ecosystem, how exactly to expose this to the outside world using Traefik Ingress Controller is very simple. It's a configuration change that needs to be done, and any configuration change that is done here quickly gets picked up dynamically by your Ingress controller, and it also shows up in your for the sake of argument, say if I have to make a small configuration change such that the URL hello.minikube points to a different service instead of this hello service, I don't really have to modify anything else other than this simple YML file. I just go and say this. So what this would mean is I have successfully managed to tweak the configuration such that now hello.minikube points to the welcome service. Now, for those of you who know that, if at all you're on a load balancer, modifying any of these services needs a lot of work in the background or in the backend. But if you use Traefik, the configuration is pretty simple. It's just a simple YML file that gets to be modified, and the changes are dynamically picked up by your Ingress control. There's no need to restart any service or stop and stop any service. Automatically and dynamically the configuration gets picked up. Thanks a lot guys for watching this video. I hope this information was useful for you. If you have any questions, if you get stuck in any of the configurations, if at all you're following this video, and if you're referring to my GitHub repository, I'll be more than happy to help you out. In case you do hit upon a problem, just drop me a note in the comment section and I'll be able to help you out. Alright, thanks again for watching this video. You guys have a great day.